Hey everybody, Ben Ferrari, Pilot Studios. Welcome to the Pilot Studios show, episode 3. I want to do a little bit of Extreme Studios story today, and I want to talk about one book that I made with a couple of friends of mine that was put out by Red 5 Comics. I've had 2 series with them, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about one of them and why I'm proud of it and why I think you should go to their website and buy it. And then I want to first tell you about the music you're hearing in the background. Do you guys like records? Is it coming back in your reality? I decided for my 50th in March that I wanted a record player, and I was going to start, collecting records, stuff that I've been listening to CD for years, and then digitally, of course, for the last 10, that I want to go back to records. So I got myself a record player, and I put it out to friends and family coming to my 50th. Get me your favorite record as a gift, right? This is my 50th. People are going to bring gifts. Let's do something a little bit different. A little bit, I don't know, means a little bit more, I think, than just people bringing random things. So it went off really well, and I got a lot of cool things. This is not one of them that you're listening to. This is my choice. This is a Radiohead album called, wow, I didn't even look at it. I want to say this is, I didn't really prepare that. It doesn't even have the name on it. I want to say The King. No, let's see. Hail to the Thief. That's right. I remember when this came out. I was living in San Francisco at the time. 2000. Oh, this must have been 2009. So I was not in San Francisco. Anyway. Good music. If you're a Radiohead fan, it's fun on vinyl. If you're not a Radiohead fan, if you've never heard of them, never listened to them, give them a shot. That's what I got going right now in the background. Let's see. So, Extreme Studios. I worked with Extreme Liefeld 1994 to 1996, approximately 2 years. And I like to show off some artifacts of my time there. I would hang out in the bullpen all the time after work, right? I do my normal 9 to 5. A guy named Kite Kim and I would do FedEx at 5 o'clock. Back in the day, before everything was scanned and emailed to each other, it all had to be tons of FedEx was going in and out of that studio. Art would be sent to inkers. Files would be sent to the printer via FedEx. Anyway, after the FedEx, after my day was done, I'd go into the bullpen where all these guys were working, and pencilers penciling pages, inkers inking penciled pages, colorists doing color guides. That's kind of a lost art, color guides. That's a little bit of a tangent. Basically, somebody would take a photocopy, on a regular sheet of printer paper, and they would go over it with markers or colored pencils or whatever, markers typically, and come up with a color guide, and that guide would be handed to the color separator, somebody sitting at a computer with Photoshop, and they would follow the guide. And it actually makes a lot of sense because Extreme Color had multiple shifts of colorists, I think 3 shifts, and you wanted these books to all be uniform as far as a look, consistency, character colors, basics like that. So if you had someone doing color guides, those color guides could go to random people, and they could all be consistent in the colors. But people would make photocopies of work. There was Brazilians, tons of Brazilians working for the studio. Roger Cruz, Joe Bennett. Apologies if Joe Bennett wasn't one of the Brazilians, but there was a lot of Brazilians. Joe Bennett was, I want to say South America, maybe not Brazil, and he was one of my favorites, and he did a couple issues early on of Supreme. photocopies were made all the time of the work, right? For notes, just as a record. This one had a Extreme Studios version of Thor. This was Supreme number 6. Doesn't have a page number on it, but I'm sure I have the book in my collection. And it's just fantastic. Joe Bennett is a terrific artist. And look at that detail and the perspective. Just amazing. So, long story short, I have a stack of photocopies from my time at Extreme. And you'd go into the printer room, which is a little side area off of the bullpen, and there were photocopies, tons of them. And I would just grab them because they were going to be trash. People wouldn't leave their photocopies unless they didn't want them. So I have a couple of Joe Bennett pages. Here's Supreme. And I just love it. Joe Bennett came back, I don't know, 35 issues later, and did a couple of the early Alan Moore issues of Supreme, and those were absolutely spectacular. His style had changed a little bit, but I still loved it. In fact, okay, I take it back. He was also on some mid-20s issues as well. This looks to be issue 28, page 1. And I absolutely love everything about this. Just the best artist in Joe Bennett. So, let's see, we got some Supreme stuff. Lots of Supreme stuff. Another artist who I've mentioned on this show named Jeff Johnson, who I consider a friend of mine. He's done some covers for me on various books. I've bought some original art from him. They did a 3-issue series called Legend of Supreme, which was a little strange. Keith Giffen wrote it. There was multiple versions of Supreme over the years, in the early years, and Keith Giffen decided to kind of use some of those different versions, I think. And it got a little bit confusing, the story. The art was spectacular. The story, it was okay. It was better than a lot of stories coming out of Extreme or any of those studios in the beginning. Well written, and of course, well drawn. Dan Panosian was the inker on these things. Look at that. But it was confusing because you had different versions of the character. So, yeah, it wasn't the best thing ever. But certainly art-wise, I loved it. There's that. Need I say more? Okay, this I picked up in the bullpen because the artists would pass around their favorite reference, their favorite artists. Photocopies would be flying around. And there is a Jim Lee photocopy of a famous, I don't think this was actually a cover. If it was, I apologize, but I think it was just an ad. Oh no, it says X-Men 268, page 1. Okay, so I'm wrong. I love I have this issue. I sent it to be slabbed actually recently. So this is page 1 of 268 X-Men. And I have 2 of those for some reason. Let's go Jim Lee Wildcats. What do you think? Scott Williams on inks. This is early Wildcats. Look at that. This is issue 3, page 10. That was an inked page. This is issue 6, page 6, pencils only, Jim Lee. If you're an art fan, if you're a Jim Lee fan, I know you are appreciating this. Wildcats, issue 3, page 18, inked by Scott Williams. Wildcats, issue 3, page 11. This bad guy was named Hellspawn. Pretty spectacular. This is 90s. This is typical 90s comic books, and that's when I was a teenager. Graduated high school in '94. Loved every second of it. Loved all of it. Legend of Supreme, back to Jeff Johnson. This is pencils only. No inks as of yet. How would you like a double pager Supreme Chris Sprouse? It's very Star Wars, this particular one. Very Star Wars. It always reminded me of Star Wars. All right. I got some of my own stuff mixed in here. Getting rid of that. Let's see. This is an ad, a promo by Chap Yip. Inks by John Sibal. That is the bad guy of a series called Crypt. What was the storyline? Supreme Sacrifice, maybe? Chapel's in there. I love this. Chap Yip was the greatest. Great Prophet, great Supreme. Crypt and Chapel is... Yeah, Chapel's in there, right there. Shaft. You know I'm having fun, right? Thanks for sticking with me 11 minutes in. Supreme Annual. This is Giffen, I believe, did the art, or at least the layouts, and Charlie Adlard did art, and I really enjoy this as well. Charlie Adlard. I'd have to think of what he would be known for. Charlie Adlard. I mix him up sometimes with Phillips. Adlard did some Wildstorm stuff. He did some X-Files stuff. And there's a great penciled page from Jeff Johnson on that Legend of Supreme series. Right? There he is flying. Best shot of somebody flying over a city. Incredible. Now we got Sam Louis, L-U-I, on a book called The Cybrid, another Extreme Studios story. I think this was done in short story form. Sam Liu was extremely detailed, but also very slow. And so they didn't do a whole lot of this, but look at that. And I believe it was put out in short stories, backup stories. Here's another Sam Liu page for Cybrid. Fantastic. Sam Liu went on to do a lot of animated work, working in animation, I should say. Another Sam Liu Cybrid page. And then back to Jeff Johnson's Legend of Supreme. Jeff Johnson was known for Wonder Man during the 90s, early 90s. He did maybe 25 issues with some fill-ins by others during that time. Brigade. This is Roger Cruz stuff, who was a Joe Madureira, clone, basically. He's since, in 30 years, just become extremely good. Just a little bit of Madureira influence, but he does his own thing, and he's really amazing. Legend of Supreme cover, Jeff Johnson and Dan Panosian. Look at that. Legend of Supreme, issue 3, page 6. This is Supreme versus Supreme. Don't ask me why there's two of them. It's been too long since I read the series. There was a kind of a feel of a religious Supreme, but he was different than one that came later, and I think that's where that storyline comes from. Youngblood Strike File. Chris Sprouse, the character is Masada. It says Youngblood on it. I'm fairly certain it showed up. Oh, you know what? That may be a Youngblood annual. They did a Youngblood annual #1. I think only one issue of the annual. Oh, yearbook. Annual yearbook, one of the two. Another one of those pages. Chris Sprouse. Masada. It says Youngblood up top. Youngblood yearbook. I don't think it was a yearbook, but I could be wrong. Let's go back to the Charlie Adler, Keith Giffen, Supreme in Space. And I think the last thing I have for you, two more. Another Supreme issue 27 by Joe Bennett. Kid Supreme, another version of Supreme. Really good. And then a Marc Silvestri Batman was floating around. You know, to be honest, this one may have come later in the 2000s, and somehow I got it. I don't know. Of course, it's spectacular. Was it actually done during the 90s when I was at Extreme Studios? I can't vouch for that. So, that is my photocopy collection of artwork I picked up at Extreme Studios. All right, so I've done a lot of comics over the years. I created a book called The Sun Chasers, S-O-N Chasers. And the idea, along with my father-in-law, who helped me develop the original pitch idea, was the son of Hitler, out to redeem the Hitler name. He was a good person, trying to redeem the sins of the father, make up for the sins of the father. Obviously, impossible task. We set the book in 1995. He's 50 years old at that point, because he was born in 1945. To Eva Braun, who escapes the bunker pregnant with Hitler's child. That was a basic story. And she raises him in Chile, and Hitler dies, but she lives, the son lives. His name is Heinrich Hitler, Henry Hitler. And Buck Weiss and I developed that story, and Buck sat down and wrote a great script for it. So I want to say this is 50 pages. This is an original Pilot Studios version. We went magazine size. This is a Martin Montiel cover showing Henry Hitler versus his father. And the book was called Sun Chasers, Hitler's America. And Kurt Belcher, a good friend of mine, one of my longtime collaborators, did all of the art. And there is page 1 showing Hitler and Eva Braun. She's getting out of bed, and who passes her but a body double. So the body double dies in the bunker with Hitler. I love this book. I'm very proud of it. Grateful to Kurt for doing it. The character would basically go after people like his father. Very much like the Punisher, with a much better backstory. So that's been done for a few years. I went and pitched it to Red 5 Comics, and they took it. We reformatted it, put a new cover on by Elias Martins, and put it out in comic book stores. And this is available on red5comics.com. So Sun Chasers, again, Kurt Belcher on art. Look at that. Really good story. It's a one-shot, so you buy it, you read it, you don't have to wait for issue 2. It's all included. We're looking at 19 minutes. I think I'm going to call it on that. Thank you for hanging out with me for the Pilot Studios show, episode 3. I hope you enjoyed that.